It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island.
It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Kevin Carr.
And this is It's Movie Time.
It is movie time.
Kevin, help me with Nicolas Cage. What is he doing these days? The unbearable weight of genius or something like that?
Yeah, talented. Well, he had a huge rash of bad financial decisions and a divorce.
I know he always
And
does.
he
Yes.
had a lot of debt to make up.
I know.
And that's why he was just taking any movie that came to
know it.
him, and that ended up in the dollar store bin.
But you know, now and then he hits one like Pig.
Well, yeah. Well, now he has he's paid off his debt, and just started a couple years ago. And that's why some of his stuff. It's not that he's going back to the blockbusters, but he's picking more interesting stuff, like
Yes.
stuff like Mandy, or like you said, Pig, or The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes, very good. Yes.
And now this one, Dream Scenario, that we're going to be talking about. He just. He still is getting the off-kilter weird stuff because he's past his prime to be the leading man.
Yeah.
And I think actually I just read in the news today he's talking about wanting to retire from movies and might just do TV, or at least before he turns 60. But that makes sense because he's not going to be doing the big starring roles anymore. It's got to be weird stuff.
Yeah. I think his filmography is over 130.
A lot of those are because those dollar store bin ones. He was just taking anything.
I know it was.
And some of them are terrible.
I know it was. But I have to admire him for a Dream Scenario.
Yeah.
Here's a strange film. And Kev, can you give me a capsule of that for our audience?
Yeah, basically Dream Scenario is about a mild-mannered, sort of nerdy professor who starts showing up in people's dreams.
Yes.
I mean, and we're talking like everybody's dreams. People don't know him. And it's this weird cultural phenomenon, and he becomes suddenly famous, and with that fame comes a lot of bad decisions, and it turns into a dark side.
Yes, very good. Thank you. That's excellent. What I love about this is that he's everyman.
Yeah.
Bald pate, big belly, and kind of almost like he's on drugs, but he's not. Just not reacting.
Well, he's a boring guy. That's the whole point. He is, well, and this whole movie, what's interesting with this movie is it swerves into some really interesting philosophical content.
Yes.
Stuff about privacy and permission and that sort of thing, and the effect you have on people. But that's not what the movie's about. So I think it sort of squanders those greater stories really for more an allegory of what I would call internet fame.
Yes.
When you go viral.
Yes.
Like there's that woman, I don't know if you've seen it, where a woman's she's on a plane and she's yelling, "That guy in the back is not real." These weird viral things that propel people to sudden fame, and they have no idea what to do with it. Because if you're a rock star or a movie star, you've got publicists and people handling you. But with this, you get sudden fame with no cash.
Yeah. And it's all of those. It's exactly as you said, and perhaps its weaknesses. It does all of it. Even the cancel culture, which I find really interesting, is handled in this. Is a part of what's happened to him.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it more aims at the triggering people who require trigger warnings. And your cancel culture's there, but I mean, I think it's more the fact that there are people that are triggered by him and things, and then they have to walk on eggshells around. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
If something happens to somebody bad in their dream, it's he didn't dream it.
And it's a good point because he's a tenured professor. This is not going to derail his professorship.
Yeah, but I mean, it's certainly going to make it unpleasant.
Yes, it does. I mean, when you have students walking out of your classroom because they're afraid of you.
Yeah.
And so, but Kev, for me, on this one, I see him as a guy who's reached middle age and wondering, as you had said, what his effect is on others. I know as a teacher, and you as a broadcaster, often wondered, what am I doing? Is anybody listening to me?
Yeah.
And then years later, a former student comes up and says, remember when you said, I said, what, I said that?
Yeah.
You know, that your effect on others, you don't even know.
Well, and you may never know,
Yes,
too.
that,
But the other thing, because the point is they make it pretty clear, he's in hundreds of thousands of people's dreams, and he really only sees a small slice of that. But he is having an effect on all these other people, and it's more when it spills into his real life. But you're correct. At a certain point in everybody's career, and I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, a longtime friend, about this. You get to the point in your career where you're like, okay, you're moving into a different phase, and you're not going to accomplish anything great. You know, he's what was he? He's like, is he a math professor or
some biology?
Biology, yeah. 'Cause
evolutionary biology or something.
Studies ants and stuff, but he was never going. You know, he never made the breakthrough he wanted to,
Sure.
and he probably will never at this point because he's kind of at the end of his career. Breakthroughs are for younger people.
But he is a tenured professor. He's done something significant
Sure.
to get that. Not everybody gets tenure.
True.
So he has achieved something, and I love it.
But there's nothing more to achieve.
Well,
That's, I think,
Yeah.
the struggle he's facing.
You're right, and that's his limitation. You can't see beyond that into what the next step would be. That's a good point. And also, along with what you were saying, he studies herd psychology,
Yeah,
and that's how he does the thing about the zebra,
yeah.
you know, which I find
And-
fascinating.
Well, and that is fascinating, but it also, for somebody who knows as much about it, he is terrible at managing it because the whole point is he's dealing with herd mentality and herd psychology, and
Yes,
he's
he is.
failing at it. Oh, to the point, and this is the thing I found so interesting, is because there's a scene in there where because what ends up happening is at first he's very benign in people's dreams, but then bad things happen
Yeah,
in
right.
people's dreams. So he becomes this pariah, and there's a scene in there where he's in a diner just reading a book and eating dinner,
Right.
and people are mad at him. I'm like, just shave. Maybe dye your hair,
But he doesn't.
wear some sunglasses. He does nothing to change his appearance so people wouldn't recognize it's him.
As he does nothing when, for instance, his daughter is levitated, and he's raking leaves.
Yeah. Well, that was in the time when he was doing nothing in the dreams. Yeah. But see, and that's the other thing that's interesting is, depending on who you are, him not helping his daughter, that was probably more significant than him attacking other people in people's dreams, because that's a betrayal.
Yes.
And that's the first dream you see. So I think that's an interesting bookend because it does have that emotional impact because he doesn't do anything.
One of the powerful scenes that I'm not sure is completely connected in the film is with the young ad agency
Yeah.
intern.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to put together what they're doing there with that.
Well, I mean, it's basically, well, what's interesting about that is that's the first time he encounters him being an active participant in the dreams.
Yes.
And it's a little naughty how he's participating.
Sure.
And she wants to recreate that. And this is one of those things where it's like I said, it's a cascade of bad decisions. Because if that happened to me, I'm not as old as Nicolas Cage is, but I'm encroaching on that. And I'm a little pudgy and I don't have as much hair as I used to. So I would go into that situation and say, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Because there's nothing
Right.
I could do. It would just, all it would do is disappoint you and humiliate you. So I don't even, you realize he's drunk on the glamours of it.
Yes.
But you know it's never going to end right or
Right.
well.
Yeah, right. With this young woman, let me see, what's her name? All right, I don't have it
It
here.
starts with an A. I think her character's name is Molly.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't see it in the list here. And Julianne Nicholson is his wife, right?
I think
Janet Matthews, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's an attractive young woman, and she's had an erotic dream about him.
Yeah.
Now, anyone who's been a professor understands that this is a part of the whole business.
Yeah.
That is, you're standing in front of young people, and they're going to have fantasies.
You're put in a position of authority,
Yeah.
And there's a sexual power to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so she kind of manifests that. So which I've always thought, well, it's a great scene for anyone who's been a college professor and has to deal with even a flirtatious co-ed And as you had pointed out, you just say, I'm not going there.
Well, and that's interesting. I never looked at it from that perspective because I've not been on the professor side of it. Is this should be nothing new to him?
Right.
That's something I it didn't occur to me when I saw the movie. But I'm like, you're right. Is it every professor, no matter how you can look like Wallace Shawn, and you probably got somebody who thinks you're attractive because of the position of power.
Right, yes, and because of the subject matter, particularly for those of us in English lit.
Yeah.
We get all that romantic poetry and
Sure.
and it's easy enough to guess that this might be going on, but what I love about the movie is it fleshes it out. It makes it in a sense a reality, and he has to deal with it, and you're quite right, he just doesn't.
Oh, the whole movie's just bad decisions, but that's what it's about. It's about how a average person gets sudden fame thrust upon them and does not manage it well enough, which we see every day.
Kevin Carr, if people want to hear more, and they always want to hear more about what you have to say, they're going to have to go to the podcast experience of WCBE, and it's going to be Back Talk, and they're going to have to go there to hear it. Right now, we're going to wrap up this section with Kevin advising about dream scenario. What do you advise our audience, Kev?
I'd say check it out if you want something a little different.
Yeah.
If it's something different, but if it doesn't fulfill what you want it to, don't blame the movie.
Yes, and I wholly agree. Be cautioned. It's a bit abstract, and it's odd.
Yeah.
But I like his performance. I think it's
he's very good.
Kind of nebbish.
It's nuanced, which usually it's him screaming and on fire all the time.
It's movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island.